just coming home today. So God bless America, the USA.
21 gun salute to all the fallen troops. Active duty.
Welcome to the show, Doc. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, Pearl. How you doing?
Doing well. I'm doing well. Happy New Year. I haven't spoke with you since the New Year. How's everything? How's the family? How are things?
Well, family's doing well. Kids are doing better in school now. I'm getting ready to see my mother-in-law this week, so things are going well, man. No complaints. I mean, it's nice to talk to you. Nice to hear from you every now and then. I know I can always reach out and talk with you about anything.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful to hear always. What was what was the reason that you joined the military, Doc? If you don't mind sharing.
Sure. I joined up in '91. This was around time when wrestling was a big thing. I used to stay up late at night and watch World Wrestling Federation. And that was a big thing. But they all, and during those TV shows, they used to play Coast Guard commercials in the middle of the night. I mean, because that's probably the cheapest advertising you can get at the time. Coast Guard will spend a lot of money, so you get 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, you're gonna get a Coast Guard commercial. It's gonna be Lou Gossett Jr., bunch of boats, helicopters, running and gunning in Miami, taking down a drug dealer.
This was
I was like, that
91.
look 91, yeah. Well, 90. Okay, so 90 because I came in 91, a year later.
Commercials. Wow. Bring those back, Coast Guard. We need that.
Yeah, we need more Lou Gossett Jr. commercials, man. But I thought that's interesting, but I never thought it was going to be something I would do as a career. Uh, my mom, I was living with my mom at the time, and I was working at Pep Boys, and that really wasn't going anywhere. And just thought I need something different, but I really couldn't pin it down. I looked into the Navy. The Navy talked a lot of good game, but when it came down to it, I didn't like the terms of what the Navy was offering. So then my mother said, well, why don't you look into the Coast Guard? And I did. I went down to the recruiting station, talked to, I remember it was YN1 Science and YN1 Yvonne, I believe her last name was Brown. I remember her first name was Yvonne. I ran into her years later in my career. But, in talking to them, they, said, gave me the lay of the land. Here's what you can expect. I remember looking around the recruiting office and seeing all those pictures of Coast Guard boats, and I never once thought to ask, what are those and who works there?
Right.
But I think to get to the point of your question, my mother was pretty instrumental in me joining the Coast Guard, just pointing me in that direction, and then I took off with it.
That's amazing. Yeah.
That and the fact that really working at Pep Boys wasn't going to take me anywhere in life. Wasn't interested in going to college, not at all at the time. So I decided, what, let's do this, see where it goes.
Do you remember what it was like the day that you enlisted? Like the first day you enlisted? Or maybe getting to boot camp, maybe?
I do. I remember that vividly because, I went, there were 3 of us that were recruited out of Sacramento, and we took the bus ride down together. We went to MEPS together, and we graduated together. And I remember that night we stayed in Oakland at the, because we were close to the MEPS. They put us up at a hotel right downtown Oakland near Jack London Square. And we went out to dinner, and we were all, like, oh, this is the last cheeseburger run I have in a long time. And, I can't, looking forward to it. I remember that flight, getting into Philly, the bus ride from Philly to Cape May. And then, it could have been midnight. It could have been 9 p.m. It felt like it was that we had been, we had been on the road all day, but we were just exhausted. But off the bus, form it up. And we're like, what does that mean? So a little bit of excitement and terror at the same time, not knowing what's going to happen. But just for me, let's see what happens. I'm gonna roll with it.
If you remember anything, what was basic training like? Do you remember anything about basic? Like just your overall experience? It don't have to be, like the whole time, but like is there anything key that you remember that stands out to
I
you?
I do, and one of the things is when like that first couple weeks in boot camp, we had a company commander. He was a bosun mate first class,
Hmm.
and I feel like I felt that at the time people had such reverence for those company commanders. And I still do, because that's not an easy job when you're trying to get 30 to 50 people to do one thing at a time and get there on time. Right. Then for me, I was like, man, this dude must be like top tier, because he's running this whole show all by himself. He doesn't have any assistant company commanders. It's a one person show at this point in '91. So I was kind of in awe of that. Like, wow, that's a pretty interesting. Not knowing, that this is pretty common for the Coast Guard to put someone, in an E6 position, in a position of leadership and authority and responsibility to develop these new recruits into something that can go out into the field and contribute to the overall. So that's kind of what struck me, my first, within, that first couple of weeks, is that, hey, this is something.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Shout out to the company commanders. They do a great job, the best job they can. What was your first unit like? Do you remember reporting to your first unit for the first time?
Oh
What was
yeah, I'll never forget it. And a lot of people that were on watch the day I reported won't forget it either. Um, our first unit was the Coast Guard Cutter Boutwell, Alameda, California, just a stone's throw from Oakland,
right?
literally one versus the other. So I leave my mom and dad's house because I had my 7 days permissive orders. I worked in the recruiting office, get on my stuff, get on the road, and this was before GPS, so I had a map in the car, had an idea where I was going, but I really didn't know how to get there. This is a pretty common theme throughout my career before GPS. So I get on the road from Sacramento, drive into, you know, Berkeley, San Francisco, Oakland, take the wrong turn. I end up in San Francisco at the Highway Patrol Station 1. So I stop. Hey, do you know how to get to Coast Guard Island? They said, buddy, you're in the wrong place. You took a wrong turn at the Bay Bridge. Got to go back over the Bay Bridge and then get off on this off ramp, and you'll see some signs.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. Finally made it to the Coast Guard base. Wow, look at that. The first thing you see when you get to the gates, ships lined up on the pier. Get to the gate. Hey, I'm reporting for duty. They said, all right, ship's right there. So guess what I did? Drove straight up a one-way street, parked my car, and reported for duty. What a way to show up to your first unit.
Yeah.
They were like, yeah, we saw you at the gate. Drive right up that one-way street. I was like, that's a one-way street. They're like, sure is.
Yeah.
And then they're very welcoming and just laughing, because at that time it was probably about 10 o'clock at night. So there's not much going on for them to entertain them. But for them, that was their entertainment. Me driving up that one-way street.
You made an entrance. You
I
definitely
made
made
an
it.
entrance. They knew who I was. They were like, wow, okay, boom. All right, we'll get you checked in and get you your rack. There we are.
Yeah.
I made it.
Yeah.
Spent about 18 months there.
18 months there. And what were some of your roles and responsibilities like in that 18 months, just for like a young person that would come in? What was your rate at that time?
I was still an E2 student apprentice, and our main job was to do whatever we were told. And so we were sweeping us, we were cleaning our berthing area pretty much daily. We waxed the deck, or strip and wax the deck outside the berthing area, probably weekly. We clean the overheads. We stand watch, on the bridge. In port, we'd stand watch on the quarter deck. If we had to sweep the pier, then we had to go out sweep the pier. Food came into the ship, we'd have to jump in line and help load those stores on the ship. What else we were doing? Oh, I ran the paint locker for about 6 months where I was mixing paint, distributing paint, and general duties include everything under the sun on a ship for a non-rated person. So if you're needed to lower a boat, you're going to go help lower a boat. If you need to raise that boat, you're there raising it. During helo ops, I was on the fire team. I was part of the hose team on the port side, starboard side. I remember that because I used to fall asleep every time we had flight quarters.
Every time, right?
Every time.
That's
So tired.
amazing. That's amazing because you just explained so many things, so many skill sets that you were able to learn and able to become actually proficient at, and that's basically entry level into the military, into the Coast
Right.
Guard.
You
And
know, you might be looking out today. In the next 5 minutes, you're going to be running a message to the captain. After that, you might be running down to get coffee for the whole bridge. Who knows? You just have to be prepared for anything. And I tell people all the time, when you first join the Coast Guard, you're not going to do anything that's important to you, but it's important work.
absolutely.
Things like keeping that berthing area clean may not seem like an important job, but it is. One, it keeps you busy. Two, it keeps the gear put away. So God forbid a ship ever sank, you're not stuck in gear adrift. That might be a simple way to put it, but those things matter. Those things count. On top of that, everybody was doing it from your officers on down. People were, even the most basic task on the ship of keeping that berthing area, that stateroom clean. Everybody had to do it. It wasn't just all enlisted. You keep everything clean. No, everybody was doing their part.
So, Doc, can you tell us a little bit about what you did while you were in the Coast Guard?
Of course. So I was a health service technician, which equates to nothing on the outside, but when you're considered a jack of all trades in the healthcare field for the Coast Guard as a corpsman, early on I was a pharmacy technician. Went to Fort Sam and trained with them as a pharmacy technician. I was certified by a national organization after I took the test and paid the fee. Worked in Alameda for about 5 years. Also, just a general duty corpsman. You don't take vital signs. You're going to write up patients and, why are you here? Um, you can draw blood in the laboratory and prep it for testing. What else? You might work in the minor surgery suite, removing toenails or helping lance boils and other things. Just really, and administration. So heavy in administration as a corpsman. So, where there was record keeping, filing, making sure things were available, laboratory reports filed correctly. Those are the things I did as a junior corpsman, and as I moved up in my career, I worked the safety job, where I did audits of Coast Guard units, and that was good work because it was different from being in a clinic. I was now on site conducting safety audits with an industrial hygienist. And this is different for most career corpsmen because most corpsmen are going to spend a lot of their time in a clinic, from clinic to clinic to clinic. But I felt fortunate that I was able to go from a clinic where I was managing a clinic as a chief to now working in a safety job, auditing Coast Guard units and working with their safety management team on site. I really enjoyed that part of my career because it allowed me to travel more stateside and meet more people, different people from different walks of life.
For the young people listening, are any of those skill sets that you learn, can they use those in the civilian world?
So I'm going to add a few more of the things that I did when I was active duty. I was an emergency medical technician. So EMT definitely is something you can translate into the civilian world. As far as a general duty corpsman where you're checking patients in, nah, it depends on the state you're in. I know some states require a certified medical assistant certificate. Other states, they'll let you screen, basically take vital signs for a patient and check them in for the doctor and then leave the room. I know Maryland, I met a phlebotomist just the other day. She says, "Oh no, we don't need a certificate to work in a hospital here." I said, "That's great. I could do that because, they train them on site."
Okay.
But some states Some states may want that phlebotomy certificate before they want you let you work. I was a pharmacy technician, so definitely when I had that national certification, I could have applied to any number of pharmacies and worked filling prescriptions after hours while I was active duty.
Okay.
Uh, I've got friends that are radiology technicians that actually tested and received their certificate for the state they work in, so they can moonlight during active duty,
Mm-hmm.
and and then they've done the same. They've gone on to do the same thing in retirement, working as a radiology technician, shooting X-rays. Um, with regard to what I did in the twilight of my career, I was a healthcare administrator. I didn't have a degree when I was doing it, but the skills I learned and while I was doing that would definitely be give me an advantage over another person competing for the same job, especially in a VOD setting where if I was looking for another healthcare administration job, definitely that experience would help me. But in some cases, like the civilian sector, they're looking for that healthcare administration degree and the experience. If you can
Yeah.
you take advantage of those opportunities that are available, but also look for those opportunities that
There we go.
aren't being advertised. Those opportunities are out there. It's just that sometimes leadership isn't putting that information on the street, or you may not be getting the messages. Ask, are there any
Ask.
opportunities that I can take? I know that DoD has a wonderful program for people that are looking, right at separation and retirement.
Doc, can you please hit us with a key piece of advice for active duty members and our reserve members?
My key bit of advice for you is take advantage of those opportunities when they're presented to you, but also seek them out aggressively. Make the phone call to the program manager, ask your leadership, ask somebody, talk to your peers because somebody knows about something that an opportunity that's available. It's going to help you achieve the goals you want throughout your career.
So deployments, can you tell us a little bit about any places that you've deployed to?
So when I was on the 378 as a non-rate, we did a lot of deployments up to Alaska and the Bering Sea. And I tell you, what cold is cold in Alaska. I don't care where you go. To me, cold is cold. You can put on your boots, foul weather boots, your foul weather gear, your jacket, and you're still gonna be cold. One thing about that environment up there is that it'll test you because we still had to go. This was back in the day when we were still dumping trash off the fantail of the ship. We had to sort trash from plastic bags. We weren't wearing any gloves because nobody even thought back in the 90s to put gloves on non-rates so they could sort through trash. Just sort it, throw the biodegradable stuff over the side, and wash your hands and get back to work.
In the Bering.
So those in the Bering Sea, trash gotta go. You can't carry it around. We didn't have incinerators. We didn't have none of that. So they would collect it on the fantail, and
It's
man,
all
I think like maybe 2 to 3 times a week, we'd be out there sorting through it, dumping it over the side, and saving all the plastic for when we got to a port we can get rid of it. Those are the things that when you're standing lookout on the flying bridge by yourself, that can test a lot of people's metal. I mean, even something that simple, but it could be terrifying because you're up there and you're that between the radar and the people on the bridge, you're that one people are relying on to spot anything that could be a hazard to navigation or to the ship. So the Bering Sea was a very, it was those were great deployments. We got into Dutch Harbor, we hit Kodak, we hit Adak Island, that little Aleutian chain. It used to be a Navy base, now it's a former Navy base. It's natural reserve now. But those are the things that I really enjoy about being on the ship is that we got to see those things that I would have never seen if I had just stayed at home and worked Pet Boys.
and
You know,
work Pet Boy.
where
Yeah.
else do we? Cozumel, Mexico. Those are places that I hadn't been to or even thought of going to.
Do you have any advice for for people transitioning out of the military?
Prep yourself early, and you're going to hear it, but people don't. And I speak from experience when I say I've known a lot of people that have separated from the service, been discharged from the service, and retired from the service. They're all the same with regard to the military. They call it the same thing. You've been separated. But the worst time to go looking for a place to live is right at retirement for some people, because they haven't set themselves up financially before retirement, before separation, before discharge. If you're not looking today, day one, Coast Guard, at your separation, which could be 4 years from now, could be 40 years from now. If you're not looking at that and putting that money aside, that 10%, those pay raises you get every year, that bump in money that you get during an advancement, you're not helping yourself out for your transition later on in life.
That's right.
There are people that are ready to go out and buy a house after retirement. Me, personally, I knew in 2017 I was retiring in 2021. So my goal was we're getting in the house and we're going to start paying towards that house before I even set foot out that door. And that was the number one thing, number one stress reliever for me, because I knew I got a place to go when the Coast Guard says have a wonderful life.
Fair winds and following seas, right?
Good luck, buddy.
Yeah.
Who are you again? What's your name? So yeah, the number one piece of advice I would give folks is start preparing the day you join. The opportunity is there, and if you don't take it, you're not doing yourself any service.
And so, Doc, how do you spend your days now that you're retired? What keeps you active?
I get them kids fed first thing in the morning, and make them breakfast, make my wife breakfast, my daughter breakfast if she's home. Pack the lunches, get them off to school, take the dog for about a 1 to 2 mile walk, come home, see what kind of chores I got to do. I got to do dishes, laundry, folding clothes, putting them away. I got to fix my toilet this tonight. So just a lot of keeping house, really. I'm a professional house husband.
Professional house husband.
a bowling trophy husband, if you will.
For real. Home house husband. I like the sound
doing the house shopping for the week. Just keeping house, really. And when I can, getting together with friends that are retired in the area that we go out to lunch, or we'll just go out and just hang out. I did link up with with Wounded Warrior during the summertime, and they had a lot of activities where like kayaking, hiking, all sometimes community service along with a physical event. So there were some times where I'd go up to Baltimore Wounded Warrior and we do a workout together. And one of my buddies, he's part of that too, so we do that. So it's just trying to stay active, with physically and emotionally, because that's one of the hardest things. Is everybody I know is active duty or retired, separated from out of state.
Yeah.
Go to the movies, go bowling, go for a hike, go for a ride the bicycle, up and down in the neighborhood, work on bicycles, work on mowers, do whatever I want to do around the house, and still contribute to my household by going to do my volunteer work.
Great information. Thank you, Doc. So after you retired, what led you to go and volunteer?
Sure. Well, I tell you, I had been volunteering at various things throughout my career. At one point when I was working in Alameda, I was part of their community-oriented policing, whatever you want to call it, community police academy, right? Where I got to work parades and block traffic off, part of the community. When I was younger, I used to work in a soup kitchen. So early on in my life, I was already doing community service on top of the community service I received after I got arrested at 16. That's another story. But I had been doing community service throughout my career. But as I neared my retirement, we went through that whole COVID thing. We had the government shut down where people weren't getting paid. and we had community pantries coming onto the base to, assist personnel with food insecurities. And I saw that as a great way to, for me to give back to my community. It was a natural fit for me to find that opportunity, get on board with it. I've been doing it for about a year and a half plus now, where, working at the food pantry on Fridays, which means I pick up the food from the distribution center at 7 a.m., get it to the distribution spot by 10, do another pickup at 11, drop it all off by noon. And by 2 o'clock, I'm still on site for prepping for distribution at 2:30, and probably not going to get home till about 5:30.
Yes.
And then also working at the winter relief shelter, where the unhoused, when the temperature dips below 31 degrees, we bring them in, give them a hot meal, a cot, and a blanket, and a warm place to sleep for the next 12 hours. Doing the little things that we can do for those unfortunate, it's nice. It makes me feel good. Yeah. But I also know that if I was in that same position, I would want those services too. I would probably, if I was in that position, I'd use those services too. And that means a lot to me, because it just shows that the things I've learned throughout my time in the service carry over to what I do. That's the thing I need to recommend for people to just kind of get involved in whatever community you're in at the time you're in. It doesn't have to be 5 days a week. It could be 1 or 2 days a month. And those services those services in the community need those volunteers to sometimes make things happen.
Thank you for joining us on the show today and sharing all of the wealth of information that you have offered. Please come back and join us again. Before you go, is there anything you want to say? Words of inspiration, anything?
Yeah, I do want to say thank you for having me on because I really appreciate the opportunity to share my misinformation, or I'm sorry, wealth of information. Because I've learned a lot over the years, and it's not often I get to share things with people, so it's great. Thank you. One thing I would share is the only thing holding some people back is themselves, and that's true. That was the truth for me, at least. I mean, I can't say it for everybody. Some people, sky's the limit. Other people, if you're holding yourself back, let go and trust yourself that you will succeed.
Thank you for that, Doc. If you let go and trust, you will succeed. Yep. Well, thank you once again. That's it for us. Make sure to like and share the video. Also subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for new Veteran Kettle podcasts.
So just coming home.